One of the things that I really miss from when I was a late teenager back in the youth group is that sense of expectation that just kind of came with everything. I was one of the worship leaders in the youth band, which was kind of a long story. I actually became part of the youth band before I became a Christian, really. My mom wanted me to play guitar for the youth band when I was in early high school, and I didn't want to play guitar for the youth band, and so we compromised, and I started playing guitar for the youth band, and just that ended up actually being a really good thing for me because the worship leader in the band kind of figured out that I was not like the other church kids and just started meeting up with me and talking to me and everything like that. And eventually, over multiple years of just kind of maintaining this relationship with him and talking about the Lord, the Spirit broke through my walls and brought me to faith and everything like that. Eventually, that worship leader moved away somewhere else with his wife, and the responsibilities for leading the worship band just kind of fell on me, which was funny because I was a pretty new Christian. One of the things that I just really distinctly remember about that time is that, obviously I was always really nervous going up on stage. I'm not really somebody who even really likes being the center of attention. I don't really like being a kind of public figure. I don't know if you could say that being the pastor of a church that has like 50 people really counts as being a public figure, but I get recognized at Walmart and stuff like that, and I'm just not really like the type of person who likes any of those things. I would hate to be famous or something like that. I was nervous going on stage. I was nervous doing all of that stuff, and yet I really just had this sense of anticipation every Wednesday night before going out and leading, and I would go kind of hide away in a room and read the Bible for a little bit and pray for a little bit every week before we went out there. And there was just always this really genuine hope that we would see the Lord do something during that night's youth group. And sometimes things happened, sometimes they didn't. Of course, always the Lord was working through the proclamation of his word and the discipleship that was happening and everything like that. But one of the things that happens to us a lot of times as we get a little bit older and life gets more hectic and other things start to kind of take up our time and our energy and our attention is that we just sort of stop expecting God to do anything. We stop expecting him to reveal himself in a meaningful way for us, and we just kind of content ourselves with going about business as usual. The life that we have with the Lord and the really beautiful things that he has in store for us and the mission that he's sent us on, all of these things just kind of fall into the background and become background noise while everything else in the world becomes kind of the main thing. And that can happen to you even if you are a pastor or some other kind of spiritual leader. I was talking to a friend of mine earlier today at a meeting, and we were talking about all of that. We're talking about the fact that right now our country and our culture is in a state of spiritual decline, and as a result, nothing is going to change until we experience spiritual renewal. It does not matter who we elect to office. So long as we are in spiritual decline, things are going to continue to get worse. It doesn't matter what happens with the economy. So long as we're in a state of spiritual decline, nothing is going to get any better. It doesn't matter how many actors or business leaders or other things like that put Bible verses on their notebooks or whatever. Things are just going to keep on getting worse until we begin to experience a spiritual renewal at the cultural level. But we've gotten to a place where I don't think we even actually expect anything like that to happen. I mean, I know just for myself, some of it is traceable to like depressive episodes and discouragement and other things like that we all go through sometimes. But I'll go through periods where I just stop expecting the Lord to change anything or do anything or accomplish anything through me. And it just becomes this kind of persistent sleepwalk. And I think we've actually entered into that as a whole culture. And yet, I believe that this generation is actually the generation that is going to see some unbelievable things change. I believe that the Lord is going to do transformative things in our country and culture through the church in this generation. Now, I think that that's going to look very different from what we've seen in the past. I don't think things like spiritual renewal are going to come through a Billy Graham type figure. I don't think that we're going to see it happen through the kinds of movements that we saw in the past and that we have been kind of trained to expect. I think we're going to see things happen very differently this time around. And yet, I genuinely believe that the generation of church that is here today is going to radically transform the shape of our nation and our culture. I believe that spiritual renewal is coming, but the only way that we can be prepared for it is to open ourselves up to it. And the only way that we can open ourselves up to it is to begin wanting it and to begin acting like we want it, living like we want it, reshaping our days as if we want it. I don't have like a 5 steps to open yourself up to spiritual renewal right now off the top of my head. This is not like a scripted thing. This is just kind of thinking out loud, but really above all other things, spiritual renewal in our culture begins with spiritual renewal in selves. And the starting point for all types of spiritual renewal is just being with the Lord. We're going to talk about this in a sermon in just a few weeks when we get into our Spirituality for Normal People series. Revival really does not begin with us going and doing something great for the Lord. That is actually one of the last steps in the process of revival. Instead, revival always begins 100% of the time with being with the Lord. He fills us and then stirs up revival through us. He sustains us and then stirs up revival through us. He just holds us and then stirs up revival through us. I saw a book in a Barnes and Noble not long ago. It was in the children's section of the religion section, and it was called Mostly What God Does Is Love You. And it was fine. The book was okay. I was hoping it would be more, but it just kept on repeating, mostly what he does is love you. It says God created all the things you see around you, but mostly what he does is love you. God inspired the Bible, but mostly what he does is love you. God went to the cross to save you, but mostly what he does is love you. God, all these different things. I'm probably not quoting it right, but that's actually exactly right. The beginning of spiritual renewal is not figuring out the right steps to stir your heart up for the Lord. The beginning of renewal is just letting the Lord love you, just sitting in his love for you. I don't have a roadmap, but whatever else the Lord has us do in the process of experiencing spiritual renewal, that is the place to start. Just sit down today and let the Lord love you.